Brittany, thank you so much for joining me today on Social Impact Power Chats.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, well, besides getting the white work shirt memo this morning, which we both did, we also have in common that we are in the world of social impact. I'd love to hear the story of how you got started or how you kind of entered into this career.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think for me, I grew up volunteering. It was a core part of my school community, and I really credit those experiences to what formed my own personal worldview and how I live and interact in the world. And so I wouldn't say I landed in this space as really on a search for a career path. It was more of a this is how I personally thought I could make a difference. And I felt that those opportunities and those moments were so personally transformative and believe that more people who have the access and the opportunity to give, to volunteer, to engage within this social impact space, have that opportunity to experience that transformation. And so for me, that's really what led me into the nonprofit space and has, really led me into global impact, which has really bridged a lot of those various aspects of giving, volunteering, but more importantly, helping to draw others to that as well.
Amazing. So you have this wide depth of experience that has brought you to this moment. Tell us a little bit about where you sit now, what your role is, what your team is responsible for.
So today I manage our campaign engagement team at Global Impact. And Global Impact's mission is to inspire greater good. And that really resonates with me. Again, it's about kind of bringing people together. We are an intermediary nonprofit, which also means that we are really behind the scenes on various social impact initiatives and programs. Whether, we might be consulting with a nonprofit to build a strategy around how to fundraise, maybe specifically in the workplace. We work with companies on their employee engagement strategy. We administer some of their social impact programs, whether that be their employee assistance funds or grant making programs. And then we can offer resources to the companies in those areas to increase that participation and engagement. And so, I get to sit in this really fun role of being at the intersection of all of this and to also be really behind the scenes of these massive initiatives that have this incredible impact. So I've gotten to see quite a lot of different programs and different ways of people doing things and the success that they've achieved.
Amazing. So, one of the reasons we were so excited to have you on Social Impact Power Chats is that we have people listening from the corporate world, from the nonprofit space, from the foundation ecosystem. I know in all of those places, people have these moments where they're really excited, super passionate about an initiative, and then come up against a wall. So I'm hoping that you can share with us a little bit about what kind of walls you help break down for these kinds of organizations, regardless of where they sit. Like, what kinds of problems, if people are approaching them, should they call you?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. One of the things about this sector is that it's really in response to the world too, right? So we have to adjust to what's happening in the world, and that changes and ebbs and flows every year. So, one of the things that I often see people falling into is this like, well, this is the trend right now. I'm going to do this. This is what I'm seeing everyone else do. So I'm going to do this. And, what I think I've seen in that is this a lot of pendulum swinging and dare I say even overcorrection of, I'm going to move in this direction, I'm moving in this direction. So, I think one of the challenges is really getting to the core of understanding your stakeholders, getting to the core of what your mission is, what that social impact is that's unique to you as an organization, whether you're in the nonprofit or the corporate space. And, certainly stay on top of those trends, but don't also be afraid to be a renegade in this space because you know who you can impact and really the reach you have better than anyone else. So, I think what we do as an organization is really help to identify those stakeholders, bring voice to those stakeholders, and help formulate strategies and expose leaders that might not be seeing the other side of that stakeholder view to kind of get them over the hump to build a strategy that's unique to them.
Amazing. Imagine we're sitting with some young colleagues, maybe early career colleagues who are thinking about things with fresh eyes, as you're thinking about building impactful programmatic efforts, whatever that looks like from a thematic perspective, let's assume that it's smart for your brand. Let's assume it's mission aligned. Let's assume you've got some really great resources to put into the effort. What are some things that you see that folks maybe aren't thinking about on the front end that in hindsight they should have, baked into the process? Like, what are some great, even if it's like one or two hot tips that you would share with people to say, like, don't forget X, don't forget Y, it'll save you in the end?
That's a tough question. I think that for for us, I'm thinking specifically of some of our recent programs that we've been working with, and a lot of the challenges we come up against, and that's in the employee assistance space. And in these programs, we are helping companies offer assistance to employees impacted by some kind of crisis, right? So what we often see is that crisis looks so different from different time frames, and leadership is quick to be reactive to one disaster, one story, one compelling need that an employee has. And where I see our voice and our role really being is making sure that there's this long-term goal in mind, making sure that there's equitability across programs, making sure that unfortunately, and the Ukraine-Russia crisis happened. Then we have Israel-Gaza. And who's to say what's going to come next year? And so you have to really look at things with a lens of what is the core mission of the program, and not get kind of sidetracked into some of these areas that could catch you up and make your program less equitable, or that you have resources so you can't support employees in the next crisis. So that's one thing that's come across our work most recently.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I often say that, when headlines drive decision making, it can really lead to, I don't want to say like waste, but
Yeah.
oftentimes you see like resource allocation get moved, and then you look back at the end of the year, you're like, whoa, like 10% of our budget went to this, and it's totally not mission aligned. It's not building value for our key stakeholders or for our, brand as an organization. Like, why did we
And
do
you've seen
that?
that with so many
100%.
initiatives around DE&I efforts, where companies have made these big statements, and then now you're seeing them pull back on funding. And what message does that send? So, I think kind of bringing in what the core mission of your social impact is, and threading a lot of the pieces throughout your programs is so important. It needs to be a comprehensive versus reactivity.
Totally co-sign. Okay, great. Any tips or advice that we haven't covered yet that you want to share before we move to our last question?
I think that for individuals looking to kind of get into this like social impact space, the one thing that I just, when I think of effective leaders in this area, most of those leaders have an array of experience. And I think that's, you mentioned it earlier, but there are so many different ways to be involved in the social impact space, whether it be in the nonprofit sector, in the corporate sector, in consulting shops, marketing firms even, right? And I think that cross-section of experience brings such wealth to this sector, and such wealth to professionals as they cross across those different organizations and experiences in their careers. So I think that's just one thing that as I reflect on kind of social impact as an area of professionalism, I think that that's a strength that we have, is being able to recognize the value that each of those different areas of work have.
Amazing. And, I can't believe we're already on our last question, but these power chats go fast. So, looking toward the future, I think you mentioned we never know what's coming around the corner, which is totally true. And I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but if you did, what are some things that you're thinking about in terms of like how you're orienting your team, your time, where you see growth and opportunity in impact?
Yeah, I think that for me, this work is really all about the people you're working with, the people that are buying your product or your service, the people that are living in the communities, the people that are receiving your services, and we have to put them first. And I think one of the things that we always assume different perspectives, and I think today we just had a recent election, and what does that mean for our stakeholders? And I think that's a question that everyone's grappling with right now, and offering all of these kinds of projections. But I think what's important at this time is to, again, stay to the core of who our people are, listen to those stakeholders, and they really provide you the best solution for driving that social impact. So, stay in touch with those stakeholders. I think that will help guide us through this unknown future that so many people are grappling with.
Amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time, Brittany. Thank you so much for chatting, and look forward to seeing what you all continue to build.
Thanks for having me.